Welcome to Successful Parenting, where we, Jackie Rue and Robin Choquette, share practical skills for families to build resilience and healthy connections. As practicing professionals and parents ourselves, we hope this podcast is a resource for parents to grow, reflect, and learn more about themselves and their children. Our approach is simple, tangible, and most importantly, we lead with compassion for the integrity of the families we serve. This podcast should not be taken as medical advice and is intended for informational purposes only. We love our work, and we can't wait to watch families gain confidence and open themselves up to new ways of successful parenting. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Robin.
We are back at it, and we're at level 4.
This is one of my favorite ones when I work with families to talk about. And I think this is one that once you start to identify the emotions that you're experiencing and kind of some of the emotions that underlie some of your even behaviors or communication patterns, it can be really helpful in bringing relationships together when you can tap into what's going on, not only for us, whether we're the parents or the family members, but also understanding our children's emotions and helping them to even understand and respond to their own.
Yes. I find it interesting, as you said, our emotions impact our behaviors, our communication, and our thoughts, right? I am under the belief, and kind of my research has led me to believe that often our emotions start to influence the way we think about things, and then we have these thoughts and reactions to it. Emotions aren't right or wrong. Emotions aren't good or bad. They are simply something that we experience. They are there for a reason. And so I'm often talking to families about being able to embrace and to be able to be okay that I'm having this emotion. Is my response maladaptive, or is this response really helping me to move forward and to gain, momentum towards the goal that I have or what I want to achieve? I hear a lot of people say, I'm really emotional. I need to not be so emotional. Or people have been told, don't be emotional, right?
Right. And I do think it's really kind of how you settle in and experience in them, and also even modeling for our children how we cope.
Right.
We always joke that our children learn how to manage their emotions from us as parents or family members. We are the models in terms of whether it's some of the maybe more stronger emotions like anger, just in terms of, even sadness. But it's healthy for our children to see us experience different emotions.
Right.
And in fact, all parents, we lose it at times and we yell and scream and we feel bad about that. But even during those times of opportunities to talk to our kids about, maybe that wasn't the best way I handled that emotion. And this is what I could have done. And really even having conversations with our kids, even if they're at a younger age.
Yes. And you're so right. And we've all been in those situations where we've lost it either with anger or some other really strong emotion, being able to say to the child, identify the emotion, this is what was going on. So there we're helping to create an understanding of emotions, not in a good or bad way, but as you said, modeling and saying that's not an appropriate way to handle this. I feel like I would have been better if I had done X, Y, and Z, or being able to recognize when you are handling it in a way that's appropriate. Can you come back and even have that conversation with the child at some point? I was really upset, and this is how I managed. Instead of being so reactive, these are the things that I do sometimes, and then ask them, what do you do when you're really upset and you don't want to kind of spill it or lose it or kind of put it out there in a way that's not going to be really working for you? And so I do like coming to accept that emotions there for a reason and really embracing them. It's kind of like we talk a lot about anxiety, is changing that narrative about let's shifting our thoughts about anxiety and really embracing it, because why it's there is really quite helpful.
Right. At our clinic, parents will bring in children and say, we really want you to work with our child because they struggle with anger, get out of control. They yell, they scream, they throw things. So often the kids will say, I'm in counseling, but my parents lose their temper and yell and scream. And so we talk about that. So often it's not just the children, but we have to talk about how we all manage our emotions we have to model, and that's how our children are going to learn and think about different ways of doing things.
And I think from a parenting perspective, we want to see our kids experience a lot of positive things. And sometimes it can be hard. I've seen parents get locked into, I want my child to be happy and come from that place.
Well, and we talk about happy, it's really, I think what parents are really wanting is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And, as we discussed in episode 2, healthy children can experience sadness and anger and frustration and disappointment. And how do we allow them to experience all those emotions and not want to make them feel better or be happy? I think as parents, and I experienced this, I wanted my girls to be happy. So oftentimes I was trying to make them feel better or distract them when they were upset, when really I was sending them the wrong message of expectation is that you have it all together and you're happy. And that was not my intent.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk to families, they quickly will go, yes, I want healthy. And I want them to be able to enjoy life. I mean, they're kids. It's easier said than done, but it is one of those things. If I step back and kind of look at the full picture, if I'm moving towards healthy, I can allow the child to experience a lot of different emotions and still be able to manage, even if they're uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's a big piece of it, is learning how to be uncomfortable and modeling. Sometimes this is difficult. And that's also okay, because I can rely on my own strategies and skills. I have others that I can rely on. If it's uncomfortable, I can do this. It's the discomfort, the part that's hard.
Well, and I think too, the more kids work through that, the more confident that they become, and helping children identify that even when they do something that's difficult for them, or maybe they're apprehensive or nervous, really celebrating once they've worked through it, even if it didn't go the way they expected. Talk a lot about is we want to celebrate those things that are more difficult for us as well as those things that went well. And the more children feel confident that they can endure difficult situations, the more successful they're going to really feel.
Mm-hmm.
If you win all the time, that's great. But if you go out there and you do things that were really hard for you or you didn't think you could accomplish, that's when you really start to feel like, wow, I just accomplished something.
Yes. It's kind of having a win, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Even sometimes keeping track of those. I talk to a lot of adults too, and they forget about how many successes they've had. When something goes wrong or kind of you get in that place of nothing ever works out, everything's always going wrong versus, wait a minute.
Back to zero.
Right. I think even helping families realize all the successes that the children or the families are having, recording them, making it fun. And so you see that even though things are difficult or you might have setbacks, overall, things are progressing. And sometimes when we feel like there is progression, we're going to be more able to manage our emotions between ourselves, between the other family members. But if you feel like you're always drowning, then you're going to have more of a likelihood to be emotionally reactive, right?
Mm-hmm. And when we have those wins, what we're getting is that dopamine drop. It feels really good. That's the motivator to keep going and to keep striving, even when things are really difficult. But if I can feel good in the times of difficulty, let's be honest, Jackie, doesn't it feel really great when you cross that finish line? Although it may be painful, the run, but when you finish, it feels really good. And that's why you keep going back, is because of that. And that's what I think for parents to understand, is finding ways to identify when they have successes, when things go well. How do we mark those and even celebrate them?
Right. We talk about like in sports, if kids don't necessarily, or parents don't feel like child played well or did well, finding a success that is more connected to maybe an attempt they made or even an attitude they had, or even though they weren't in their zone, finding something that they did well. And I think so often we do get fixated on the outcome, and really that can cause a lot of stress for so many of our children. But ultimately, as we're learning to deal with emotions and really trying to gear our children into managing them in a certain way as well as ourselves, we can really start to build healthier and closer connections within the family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Jackie, I think we've covered level 4. Is there anything else that you think it's important that we share about level 4? I do enjoy this one. I really do.
I think the biggest one for level 4 that I use a lot is for so many of the families, parents will say that they get really anxious when their kids are really struggling. They parent out of guilt. Guilt is a big one I hear. Maybe there's been stress in the family. Maybe there's been trauma or grief, and families feel a lot of guilt or anxiety about their children, or worry if they're not doing well, frustration. And so often we get caught up in these emotions and we react. Maybe we hover, maybe we, yell, maybe we confront. But so often we always say, what is the purpose of your response? Is it helping draw you closer to the child, or is it helping the child be motivated to do something different? And so often parents will say no. So really look at what is going on for you, as a parent. And this was one of the things I did is whenever I would have strong emotions, I would walk away from my child until I could kind of get that under wraps. Or else what I found is if I was not in tune with what was going on for me, whether I was tired, exhausted, or emotional, I was more likely to lose it or yell or say something that I would later regret. And so just by recognizing when you're emotional and taking a moment to pause, it can be a game changer in terms of the relationship with the child.
Mm-hmm. Halt, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And then you can also add something else. I remember one parent I was talking to, and the mom said, when I feel really sad. So we said halts for you. So we added the S because for her, it was that reminder that I need to pause. I need to halt right now. I need to take a pause. I know I'm sad. This might not be the best time for me to respond. Maybe I need to think on this. And she said that was really helpful to use something such as that to help remind her.
And I think whatever reminder, for me, I like visuals. Any kind of a reminder can be helpful. And even having visuals in the house for the children, the whole family to use can be great.
Yes, those sticky notes or the, what are the markers that you write on a whiteboard?
Yes.
In the bathroom using those. Those are always great ones. I think we are to our end of this session.
Yes. I think this is an important one. It's definitely a challenge. I think for most of us, it takes a lot of practice, but I definitely enjoy talking with you about this one as well as our families.
Yes. And listeners, just to remind you, if you do not have the Successful Parenting Workbook, you can go out to Amazon, you can grab that and go back to level 1 and start working through if you've jumped in right now. Also to remind you, if you're listening on Spotify, join in the conversation. Let us know what successful parenting means to you. It can be one word, it can be a paragraph. Whatever you think, there's no right or wrong. And from time to time, Jackie and I share those. So we'd love to hear from you. Reach out and let us know what you're thinking.
Yes.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us, and make sure to subscribe and like us to catch our next episode, where we will take you on a journey to find new ways of successful parenting.